So I've been mentioning in videos for the last couple of months that something has gone on with my calatheas, that I've lost a number of them, and because I haven't actually been physically in my home, I had some things happen and I was away, and I lost some of my calatheas to a very intense spider mite infection that happened in my plant room. So any of the calatheas in there were kind of up for a beating fest from spider mites. So I thought I'd show you what I lost, which I'm thinking about getting again, and kind of just my overall thoughts on my Calathea collection moving forward. So one of the first Calatheas that I lost is actually one of my favorites. It is my Calathea rufibarba. This Calathea, so this footage I've taken from when I first got it, so that's the kind of picture-in-picture up there in the top, and then what it looked like earlier this year when I did my video where I ranked my Calatheas from the easiest for me to care for to the most difficult, and this was in the easiest group. The rufibarba is really easy to take care of, but when it came down with spider mites, and the person who was helping me take care of my Calatheas while I wasn't here told me that it just started drooping. And so usually that can be a sign of aeration, issues in the soil. It can be watering, underwatering, overwatering can cause drooping. And so it was really hard to help diagnose, and even just looking at pictures. The rufibarba has hair all over it, little tiny hairs on the front and the backs of the leaves. So hard to find spider mites. The Sanderiana was in the same area with the rufibarba, and this, so again, it was difficult in the photos to see if it was spider mites as I was helping that person try to determine what was going on with it. The leaves on the Sanderiana started to curl, and so that can again be from a number of things, including soil aeration and watering issues. However, it was definitely spider mites. So when I got back here and I was able to really go over my plants, this was one that was just, it was very obviously, it had just been completely chewed through, everything sucked out of the leaves. They were incredibly speckled looking, which is one of the first signs. The front of the leaf, the back of the leaves were completely coated with spider mites and with webs. So I lost this plant, and this is a relatively new plant to my collection. I also lost a white star. Now I have 3 white stars. I've got 2 now, but this white star was actually the first that started to show any signs of issues. And again, it looked kind of like a watering issue as opposed to being spider mites. So if you've never had spider mites, it can be really difficult to tell. They're very tiny, and until they've really taken over a plant, like by the time you visually notice them and see them, they've done damage. They're harder to get rid of. So, you have to take really macro close-up pictures to be able often to see spider mites. So again, this plant started drooping a little bit. The leaves started to curl. And what I thought was going on was that the humidity just wasn't high enough, and that they weren't being watered often enough, because the person was being very sparing with the water, because honestly, it can be better to underwater than overwater plants. Underwatering is going to result in some not so great leaf conditions. They're not going to look great, but they're not going, you're not going to end up with root rot and killing the plant. So the Misto, completely gone. It's just done. And this is actually one. So far we've talked about the rufibarba. We've talked about the white star. I already have white stars. And so I already have those. I don't have to replace those. I would replace the rufibarba. I love that Calathea, but this Misto, it's a beautiful Calathea. Don't get me wrong. It's got a gorgeous leaf pattern, and to be frank, since this was filmed, it had actually put out a lot of new growth that was really beautiful and looked really, really nice over the summer without the humidity damage that you're seeing on some of the leaves here. However, it was just so far gone. There was just no way to save this plant. The damage was extensive. I guess I could have completely cut this thing back and let it regrow. But the time of year is just really not right to do that. I still think I probably could have, but I would have really been risking my other Calatheas. So here we've got the Vandenhecki, which I lost. We have an Ecuadoriana, which I lost an Ecuadoriana, and my Louise, lost my Louise. So I still have one Ecuadoriana. I would definitely repurchase Van den Hecke and Louise Calatheas. I love these Calatheas and they're really beautiful, so I could see myself wanting to get more in the future. So again, the Louise I would definitely end up purchasing again. It is so beautiful. So this one's leaves curled up. Again, this looked like a humidity and a hydration issue. It did not look like spider mites. And I'm really just shocked by the Ecuadoriana, because I just thought it would be a lot more resilient to spider mites. And again, this one, its leaves were curling, which they are so thick and rubbery. For those of you with an Ecuadorianas, you know what I'm talking about. So for them to curl is amazing, but I just couldn't save these plants. And the Van den Hecke wasn't looking good. So again, I have another Ecuadoriana, and I have a Van den Hecke that I did cut completely back that had incredibly intense heat damage, and a couple of like really deformed new pieces of growth have come up. Then there's another one that's coming up right now. I might be able to salvage the rhizomes, and get that growth looking healthy. Maybe I'll do a video for you on that. But all three of these that you're seeing here are gone. So it is quite heartbreaking. I was really, this Van den Hecke was so beautiful. The thing is that I got all three of these from the same seller, as you could see in that video earlier. That was when I was unboxing them. I'm just wondering if I can maybe reach out to the seller and see, when it's closer to the next growing season, if it's possible to repurchase these plants. So again, let's just go through the list. I lost my rufibarba. I lost the Van den Hecke, though I do have one I'm regrowing from rhizomes that maybe will make it, though I didn't leave a number here of how many I have left. Sanderiana is gone. White Star, I still have 2 left. I'm going to show you one of the ones that I got that I ordered from overseas, and it didn't do any growth for over a year after I first got it. And now actually grew a lot this year, but was completely coated in spider mites. Looks awful. But this Calathea I was able to save. And the spider mite infestation got on other Calatheas that were in that room, but I was able to save those plants. The Louise, I don't have a Louise left. The Ecuadoriana, I still have one, and the Misto. And so again, what I would repurchase would be the rufibarba. Definitely, I think the Van den Hecke, the Sanderiana, and the Louise. But the Misto, I would say no. It just doesn't do very well in my house. So this is that White Star that I got from overseas. It looked really terrible when I got it. It didn't have very many leaves, and now it actually has grown quite a bit. Some of its first growth that you can see in there has like crispy tips. It was a humidity issue that I had ended up fixing, and then it put out a lot of beautiful new full growth, new growth that came straight out of the soil as opposed to just kind of side shooting growth. There is damage to the leaves from the spider mites. It was coated. Actually, these leaves were coated front and back, by the way, which is something I rarely see is them coating the front, but they were coating that kind of lateral, just like down the center of the vein. I moved some Calatheas out before all of this started. I just happened to, and these were completely spared. So thank you to Ahmed, who talked about specifically, this was sold to me as a Picturata Crimson. I had a lot of hard time finding information. I was wondering if it was a Rosio Picta Crimson, and he confirmed that. But you can see that my Freddy is out here. I've got my Fusion White, my White Star, my Cora, and the Rosio Picta Crimson. So my next video is likely going to focus on I've had a number of requests for about 6 months for me to do a video specifically about the White Star and its care. So I'll go ahead and I'll do that next. Until next time, be well and take care.